Hey there and welcome to Geopolitics 411. Africa is going through a crisis, and this crisis is what we call the youth bulge. And the youth bulge is affecting almost every country across, from Kenya to Mozambique to Uganda to now Togo. Togo is having serious protests, and these protests began in June. And all these protests began because they want their current president, Faure, to go. And so they are pushing a hashtag on Twitter that's Faure must go. If you're Kenyan, that sounds familiar because we've had something similar with protesters calling for President Ruto to go. But today's story is not Kenyan. So Togo has so far, at least 10 people have been killed by security officials, meaning the police, since the protests began in June, calling for the resignation of President Faure. I'll go with one name because the second name is quite a name I am not sure I will be able to pronounce. So with the exception of a 3-month period since 2005, President Faure has been in power except for the 3 months. So the Faure family has ruled Togo since 1967 when his father, Eyadéma, took over power in a bloodless coup, and he ruled for 38 years. One person, 38 years. So after the death of President Eyadéma in 2005, his son Faure, who's now the current president, was installed by the military as president, and he's still in power to date. And this is why the citizens are saying Faure must go, because 2005 to now, that's a whole 20 years. Enough of his presidency, they're tired and they're saying he must go. So in 2024, Faure's party rewrote the constitution, and this is very interesting for African presidents. I don't know why they're always very quick to, edit the constitution to favor their personal interests. So they rewrote the constitution without public participation, or what is called referendum. And with that, they eliminated elections and term limits. So now that gives the current president power to move on in power and to rule the country. In May, Faure's power was further consolidated when he was now, after that rewriting of the constitution, he was sworn in as the president of the Council of Ministers. This is a new post that was created with the rewriting of the constitution that now gives and eliminates the term limits of a president. So his swearing was a culmination of a process that began in March last year when Parliament amended the constitution. You see how when we elect bad leaders as a continent, we end up having not just at the presidential level, even at the parliamentary level, where Parliament, of course, makes rules. These are the lawmakers. They decided to amend the constitution without a referendum, and this is what did away with elections. So, and this is what many of the Togolese citizens are calling it a coup against the Togolese people, hence why they've been on the streets since June. In fact, when you see the interviews that have been done and people that are speaking online, they're saying they've taken the cue from Kenya, that Kenya has inspired them, because the young people in Kenya, generally the Gen Z, went to the streets to fight against ruling that they're not happy with their current president. So Togolese have also decided we're unhappy and we can't take this anymore. Citizens cry that the president's failure systematically imprisons any dissenting voice. Like if you're against the system, you put in prison and they move on. In February, the government hosted a flamboyant $34 million memorial service for the late President Eyadéma, who died in 2005 before his son took over. So these are some of the things that have been angering the citizens of Togo, because you're hosting a memorial service worth millions of dollars in a country where unemployment, service delivery, all these things are lacking. And now that starting then, it started to build up the anger. And observers said the ceremony was attended by 5 former African presidents. It served as a lavish statement of the dynasty's enduring power. This is the real dynasty, that in a country where you're leading, where most youth are unemployed, people can't afford food, shelter, healthcare, but you can afford millions of dollars to host a memorial service for a late president. And so these are some of the factors that have sent protesters to the streets. So far, more than 100 protesters have been arrested since June. That's in less than 2 months. Over 100 people have been arrested, and we still have others who are missing. According to Amnesty International, as of last week, they said that some of the victims and they spoke to and witnesses described a series of abuses by security forces against demonstrators, including acts of torture. Every time I see this story, I just wonder, what is it with the police wanting to torture people because they have dissenting voices? I mean, most of these citizens are not speaking for themselves. When change comes and when change happens, especially if it's for the good, it's for the better of everyone in that country. So I don't understand why police feel like they have an upper hand, that when there's bad governance, you have a better way of surviving. There's nothing like that. As a policeman, it's good that, I mean, even if you're to arrest the people because that's part of observing law and order, then just ensure that these people are not tortured, because that is not acceptable. Even human rights across the world do not allow for that. So on 1st July, ECOWAS, which is the Economic Community of West African States, urged that there be restraint on protesters and called for dialogue. So far, it's not happened. In fact, between the 16th and 17th of July, some of these parties and civil society have called for more protests. And 17th is when another vote is supposed to go in, to extend the ruling for this President Faure. So the calls for dialogue from ECOWAS seems they haven't worked. All in all, diaspora communities, human rights groups, and all these have attempted to, ramp pressure on the regime, demanding sanctions and diplomatic scrutiny from the international community. Because you see, if a president of a nation fails to meet standards that are expected, especially even on things like human rights across, sanctions can be imposed. Of course, that affects business and the country is moving forward. But so far, maybe because of the wars that are happening across the world, Russia, Ukraine, Iran, Israel, maybe even the Congo, Rwanda, that of course that has gone on for a while. Maybe these are making it look like Togo is a small nation that no one cares about. So these are some of the challenges that the world is facing. And I also feel, I think the Westerners usually come in when they know they have interests, especially of minerals and natural resources. Maybe that is not enough for Togo in terms of the value they get, hence why they've decided to stay apart. While still countries not countries, the African Union also, that's why we have an African Union. It's expected to sort African problems, but so far, nothing much. So begs the question if African Union is really important to the continent. It is in some things, but when you look at the places where they should be taking a forefront and they keep quiet, then you wonder as an African why we are putting in so much for an organization that is not doing much for the nations. Anyway, experts say that beneath the anger, the constitutional changes, there lies a deeper well of frustration over corruption. Again, I told you, Africa seems to be just a big village. Kenya, our call is corruption. Mozambique, the call is corruption. Nigeria, the call is corruption. Togo, same, people on the streets because of corruption and nepotism that has been excavated by a scarce jobs market and a rise in the cost of living. This thing of unemployment is a serious problem across Africa because, again, the median age in Africa is 19-20. So you have a bulge of youth. And then as a president or a leader of a country, you do nothing to create jobs and you expect to lead young people who've gone through the education system and have nothing to do. Of course, they will revolt. So that's why it's happening in these countries. And if the leaders who take over or people who run for president with no plan continue, I can assure you, expect more and more protests until you do something. So if you really want to be a president, you have to sit and think what you can do for your nation and why you must do it. Because if you don't, you won't have a good reign in terms of you running a country. So, of course, the young people protesting say they're tired of being held hostage by a regime that's incapable of providing the population with basic necessities of life. And they can no longer, they do not want a regime that imprisons their dreams and has terrorized an entire people for nearly 6 decades. When you listen to this and read across and watch what happens across Africa, basically young people are tired of regimes that don't care about them, about the nations, people who have no vision for their countries. So they're demanding that there be release of all political prisoners and the resignation of the autocrat Faure, who has not managed to fix his country. This again goes to African leaders, presidents, prime ministers, whatever you call yourself. It is time you work for the people. This failure to work for the youth will send you home earlier than you expected. And again, I don't understand why you would want to be in power just to accumulate wealth and power and don't fix your country. We cannot say we want an Africa that works and all we do is beg, yet we are very resourceful in terms of human, in terms of natural resources, and then our country is just, remain as beggars. I think it's time we rethink Africa. That entire dream we kept saying of Africa rising, I think the time is now. So to our people in Togo, we send you our best wishes. We hope that not more people get killed. And we pray that you have a good, you get yourselves a good leader who works for you and who will lead your country to where you want it to be. If you're from Togo, watching this, or anywhere across Africa, share with us in the comments section what you feel about your leader in your own country and the issues that are happening in Togo and across the continent. Thank you for watching Geopolitics 411. See you on the next one. The world is fast-paced and sometimes you miss the action. What perspectives do you have? What is the truth? Is the world at war? Join me, Sarah Mwangi, as we make sense of the information overload.